Welcome to another episode of College Admission TV. Dr. J.P. Novin talks with Dr. James P. Lentini, president of Molloy University, about leadership in higher education, AI innovation, and how the university is preparing students and faculty for the future workforce.
Welcome to the third season of our presidential podcast. This is a podcast where we explore bold ideas and with transformative leaders, specifically presidents of universities, covering AI education and the future of workforce. In this season, we'll be interviewing and having a podcast with 50 university presidents. I am delighted to have the president of Molloy University, Dr. James Lentini. President Lentini, welcome. How are you?
Thanks, JP. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. You have a very unique background. I mean, an award-winning music composer. Could you tell us a little bit, how did you end up here as a president of a university? And then tell us a bit about Molloy University. I found it very intriguing.
Yeah, I do get that question a few times, you might imagine. I think there's a certain, kind of I think impression that people have of the pathway to a presidency, and oftentimes they don't meet with what people view as a performing artists, ending up in that role. But I would say that my response a lot of times is, well, how does a musician become a president or something like that? Is just like first of all, I was in academia. I got a doctorate at a place, the University of Southern California. I got it in music composition. Mm-hmm. And just tell the story this way, and it kind of relates a little bit to what we'll probably be talking about today when you look at technology and how it affects education in the whole world. I got at USC. I began to get involved, and this goes back several years now. In the mid '80s, even I was getting involved with electronic music, computers and music. Mm-hmm. And so my composition degree involved quite a bit of using, at that time, what would be looked at now as very primitive tools, the old Apple II computer and that sort of thing, and how technology could help to notate music and do other things with music. So long story short, my first position that I got hired into was as a faculty member back where I got an undergraduate degree at Wayne State University in Detroit. So I was in academia as part of this. That's how this happened for me. And I was a composer writing pieces for orchestras and things like that. Loved academia and became a dean, became a provost, and the next logical step is president. So I had the academic administrative experience to move into a position like this. There just aren't a whole lot of us who are in the performing arts who end up going into the administrative role. And I don't have a perfect answer for that. I think it's not for everyone, obviously, but oftentimes I would say, when I was at Oakland University before here at Molloy, there was a new medical school starting, and the medical dean reported to me. People often will, wow, you're a musician, you got a medical school reporting to you, an engineering school. And I say, yeah, but remember, if the engineer would have to be overseeing the arts and humanities, how do they do that? Right? So you don't have to be an expert at every discipline that you oversee. It's more about good decision making. So kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but yeah, one thing led to another, department chair, dean, provost, president.
Now, of course, Molloy University was founded in 1955. Originally, Molloy Catholic College for Women. Right. Is co-ed now. Tell us a little bit about the current state of Molloy University, please.
Yeah, so it's a way different place than when the Sisters of St. Dominic of Amityville on Long Island started this school. It's very, as you said, it was a Catholic college for women. The sisters did a great thing starting this institution. It grew and grew and grew. We're in Nassau County here. We're about 25 miles from Penn Station, and an easy train ride to get there. Takes about 35 minutes. And great location, which has helped the place grow over the years. So became co-ed sometime in the late 70s, early 80s. Big nursing school here. One of the largest undergraduate nursing programs in the country. Really highly respected. We have a musical theater program here that's fantastic, that came in around 2012, called CAP 21. and we get students from all over the country in that. So we're about close to 5,000 students now. It started out very small. And those 5,000 students are in 4 schools. We have a business school, arts and sciences, education, and nursing and allied health, nursing and health sciences, we call it. So 4 schools, professional programs, liberal arts roots. And Molloy is doing awfully well. I mean, I have to say, this is JP, I'm sure you're hearing, we all are seeing the really tumultuous headlines. How difficult it is out there, with some of the things coming from Washington, D.C., not to get political at all, but it certainly is challenging higher ed right now. And we're a little bit in a zone where we don't get as affected by some of the research funding issues going on, but other issues are affecting us, some of the student support issues with funding. And I would just say, though, that pandemic, which was difficult for everyone, and Molloy as well, getting through those years, our enrollment, we're about to enroll our largest first-year class by a lot in our whole history.
Wow.
So that's not a normal story for everyone, so we're pretty proud of that.
By the way, does the Dominican tradition and Nassau County, is this just coincidental?
Well, I mean, Nassau County, it's coincidental as far as I know. The Dominican tradition, the St. Dominic piece is what that's based on. So, the Dominican tradition, there are several Dominican schools in the country, and we work very closely together. People often know the Jesuit schools, of course, very well. Dominican, might know Providence College, places like that, which are prominent in the Dominican tradition.
Well, thank you. Well, first of all, congrats. Growing your enrollment in such a difficult time is a Herculean effort. So wonderful job, and kudos to you and your team. I'll start with the easy question. How do you perceive, I'm just kidding, this is not easy, but how do you perceive the impact of AI on the future workforce over the next 5 years?
Well, I know it's not an easy thing to predict completely, but we're already involved. And, a place like Molloy, our Carnegie classification, as I come from research universities, Molloy has a teaching tradition. We're in the master's category of the Carnegie classification. So we do have researching faculty members and people who get involved in areas like computer science and all the things you'd expect, business analytics, those things that would be mainly closely aligned with some of the things AI is involved with. So I do have a faculty here, a core group of faculty who I've been based in the academic world to start was enrollment management. I don't know if they, I think people see that I'm very open-minded to these changing kinds of things that happen in the world. I mean, going back to those music technology days for me, early adopting of new technologies that can help create things in a different way. My enrollment management person, Marguerite, came to me and said, we just saw a demo of this tool that I'm sure you're very aware of this, JP, of these kind of things, AI recruiter that can make phone calls for you off hours, that can receive phone calls, speak 120 plus languages, etc. And I looked at it, I got the demo myself, and I said, let's go, let's give it a try. So, so far we're a fairly early adopter. There are others doing it, of course, but so far the results are great. I mean, you can't believe the number of messages. I mean, thousands and thousands of messages that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So is it a help? Is it replacing someone? At this point, I would say our goal, and I just came back from a couple of conferences talking about this, because I think the fear is, of course, that, your intention is going to be replace jobs and do it with technology. I would say that a lot of us, and our institution included, is not out to do it that way. It's more, we've had to, we just talked about tough times in higher ed. We've had to be somewhat lean in our employment force. And these tools are coming in not to replace somebody, but to augment the staffs that we currently have. So an AI recruiter doesn't replace someone else. It's helping our staff manage more than they'd be able to handle with the numbers they have right now. So that's one example. Now, some of the other things, which I know we could get into, remain some open questions, but I know we have some faculty members at Molloy who are keenly into what AI can do to help teach students, to help train our students, to help educate our students. And others are probably, like quite rightly so, a little apprehensive about, geez, what does this do about writing skills and about all the other things that we have held dear for years. So I think, I'll make one more comment. Certainly want to hear your thoughts on this too, but trying to think that you're just going to suppress what's going on with AI, I think is absolutely the wrong direction. Someone at one recent conference said it would be like saying I'm against snow. I mean, it's there, it's going to happen. It's, happening now, and we need to figure out, we're the ones who I think need to take control of how do we ethically use these tools. And that's what we're in the middle of trying to do at Molloy.
And of course, Molloy has really been in the forefront as far as embracing AI. You have a certificate, an AI innovation technology and education certificate. You have EDU 5900 AI as a teaching assistant, teaching your education department. This is an interesting class. Teaching with and around AI, equity, empowerment, and ethics.
Yeah.
So you're definitely embracing it in your teaching. A few of your professors are doing a lot of work around it as well. Professor Deng and Chang, I believe that they've done quite a bit of research. So as you think about this, what do you think we need to equip and educate students for careers that are emerging? Because we know some careers are going to be displaced, some are going to be enabled, and there's going to be a lot of careers that are going to be created. We don't even know what they look like. That's always existed, but more so with AI. How do we prepare this next generation of students to coexist with AI?
Yeah, it's an important question. And as I said before, I think we can't turn a blind eye to the fact that AI, these tools available, will continually emerge, adapt, develop. And we need to understand how to use some of these tools to equip our students for those jobs that are out there now. And as you said, are going to be changing and emerging in this several years ahead of us. So we can't anticipate all of it, but what I think we ought to be doing, like some of our professors, the early adopters here at Molloy, start looking at, well, whether it's creative writing, whether it's coding, whether it's, you name the technology, business analytics, being able to utilize the tools, get the answers you need, keep learning alive. Those things are what we need to try to understand better. And I'll equate it to something in my own discipline. This is all emerging still. These are the questions I still have that I'm asking a lot of people out there. You mentioned my background, which is music. Algorithmic composition tools have been around a long time. Feed a computer some processes and say, hey, write a piece that sounds like Mozart. It can do it. But anyway, that's been around a long time. I think it's getting more sophisticated now, and we know that even Spotify is apparently sliding in some AI generated songs and things like that. Would the average person know it's AI generated or not? Maybe not. So I think in my own field, how will it affect music creation? I go back a number of years in my own field, writing music for orchestra, for example. I started out when you used a pencil, you used staff paper, and when you were going to get in final copy, you used ink and vellum to write it down. But I was in that transition that when computers came in, I'm sure a lot of the older school folks in the field couldn't imagine, that the computer was going to be the notation tool. That's a very simple idea of what's happening. Almost everyone uses some kind of a computer program to do music notation now. But more beyond that, music creation, that's in one field. But each discipline, I think, this is what's going to, change in the next several years for higher ed. Each discipline is going to have to wrangle with how does it affect your specific discipline. The examples you see now, certainly we talk about coding. AI can code. So what's going to happen? What kind of jobs will there be for people? who are taking coding camps before, what are they going to have to do? Probably going to have to be some expertise known that if, is the coding being done right? Is it being done well? Error correcting? I don't know. I mean, but these are the kind of things we're going to have to understand for each specific discipline. We see how it's affecting writing. Professors rightly were very concerned about students not doing their own writing and just plugging in, hey, write me a paper on, something having to do with DNA or something, and, just turning that in. But I think we're going to be more sophisticated to know that that's not going to fly. I think we're going to have to find ways to use those tools with human intelligence to also come up with the products we need. But is this evolving? Absolutely. No doubt about it.
And perhaps, I mean, there's something to say. Perhaps the way we evaluate writing might change. So yes, we know that AI could write a thesis more or less, but how we look at that writing and what we expect from writers might change. So it might be the creative areas. It might be, some unique things that there's a lot of some of the philosophy around this that I've heard is there's a lot of work that AI could do that could take the heavy lifting, and all the little detail off the writer and allow them to focus on, like the experiences and the types of things that AI can't do. So, especially when you start looking at kids through K-12, it's hard to say don't use AI. They're going to use it. So how do we start looking at the writing in a different lens than we have been in the past couple of 100 years, I would say? You mentioned that you're using AI for your calling and communication and recruiting. There's an argument to be made that, well, you might have gone to a third-party call center or customer service, so have done that in the past. Now you're using AI effectively. What industries do you anticipate are going to be more immediately affected and redefined as a result of AI?
Well, the ones that come to mind, and what I'm in the process now of putting together a president's advisory group on AI across the institution, so that we're looking at it not just the academic side, but the operations side, for example. Mm-hmm. So things I can imagine it being quite useful for when you look at the power of AI tools to do pretty detailed analysis of data. Statistics, what's happening in the finance world, and what kind of analysis can I get out of the finance area that used to take hundreds of man hours to maybe put together a report. I can envision that those areas are going to be affected. Whether or not there'll be position replacers, it's too early to tell that. I don't know. But I do think that there will be areas of operations on a campus like finance, certain aspects of IT perhaps, and some of the other things that goes way beyond that, but that could be affected. Even in the service areas, we're already seeing it. Student advising. Now, again, I wouldn't want to replace humans with AI tools exclusively for student advising, but an advising tool that can help a student off hours to say, ooh, I'm looking for, which course do I need to take next semester? I don't see this in the catalog. Basics like that. I mean, I could see some of that helping to augment what we do on our college campus. Those are just a few things. There's so much more, I'm sure, that I'm not even scratching the surface on.
Now, Molloy being so entrenched in healthcare,
yeah.
Do you see barriers like compliance and governance barriers for certain industries that are going to have a bit of latency, I would say, into embracing AI due to privacy law, due to HIPAA, due to financial regulations? Do you see some barriers that might slow down the proliferation of AI in certain industries?
It's certainly possible. I mean, I think that all those things you just mentioned, those I'd call them protections to some degree on privacy, on security of information, identities, things like that, that there definitely are some concerns that could slow down wide adoption of certain practices. But my guess is it'll all adapt. I think, one of the faculty members here on my campus on this panel that recently spoke about AI is in our nursing faculty. And, you may know this, JP, that, medicine is so ripe for some of the tools here with AI. And, even before AI exploded in these last few years, when I was at Oakland University and we were doing symposium from doctors and others in the field, and talking about how they were using technology to help with diagnosis and diagnoses that were so much, in some ways, more accurate than humans. So frightening to watch, right? And that's gone farther now. So nurses, doctors, it'll be good for patients in the long run. Again, assuming that we're not just all talking to machines, there always needs to be that ethical human element involved. But as you say, could it slow down, some of those front end traditional security pieces cause a slowing of adoption? I suppose it's true, but I assume we'll get through it.
Certainly, this opioid, I would say, pandemic that we've had, AI for prescription monitoring, from small clinics to doctors to pharmaceuticals to nurses, what have you, could be an early adopter, it would seem to me, because there are just so many different tangles into that. So some good layers could come, but at the end of the day, you need a nurse, you need a pharmacist, you need a doctor, because an AI cannot experience a human pain or any other thing. So how do you, you could yell all day that I'm in pain. AI is not going to understand it. It might give you a nice thesis about what that pain means.
Yeah. Well, the more you're talking about it, look, I think early on we all jumped to, a lot of people did anyway, jumped to the end game of this. And, there's a fear factor here, right? That it's so powerful that it can do everything. But you just pointed it out. It can't do everything. And I think part of our job in higher education anyway is to understand how we control the human aspect of using these tools and technologies in an ethical manner. And that's going to be our role, I think, as we go forward. So I think there's going to be a lot of noise and there's going to be a lot of still controversy or debate on how to use these tools in certain classrooms and in certain disciplines, but it's going to get there. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
It's like kitchen, right? You have microwave, you have the oven, you have the dishwasher, you have refrigerators. Maybe in the 60s, they said, what is someone going to do in the kitchen? But there's a lot of work. You still need to cook. You still need to manage that kitchen. So as you think about this, what kind of strategies are you all thinking about this AI impact for student career readiness?
Yeah. So I'm thinking about that now, and my approach always in my leadership role anyway is to try to pull together as much expertise and knowledge as I can. I think we're much more effective and useful when we work as teams. So we can all learn from each other. So bringing in those people who are experiencing AI from multiple angles is what I'm doing to pull together this panel that I talked about, where we are going to be making sure we're trying to anticipate and adapt our needs and our uses and our teaching of students to make sure that we're hearing already, 70 or 80 or 100% of students are using AI in some form or fashion. They shouldn't get out of college, I don't think, without having utilized AI in a way that is directed in the ways that I'm talking about, with thinking about what are effective ways to use this, what are ways that will make you better, produce better knowledge, better products, better research. That's what our job is. So we're still on our way. There's no doubt. I don't have all the ready-made answers for this. So my approach to it is a lot of smart people on my campus. Let's pull them all together and talk about, we're going to do this well. How do we get that done? And what should we not do? That's the other part about it that I think we need to think about.
Do you perceive any or predict any particular academic programs being added, modified, or repurposed in response to the rise of AI?
Excuse me. That's a good question. I don't, at this moment, I don't see anything where AI is that far along that we would just not stop doing something that we currently have. For example, we implemented a business analytics program within the last year and a half. And I think AI really exploded in the last year and a half. So it's not going to, it's not going to stop business analytics. It's just going to change the way we're doing it. It's more of that I see. The new programs we're considering, they're not the type, I don't think, that would, again, supplant humanities programs or something like that. So I don't see anything that's like, let's add this and take this away because of AI specifically. Could that change in a year? I suppose it could.
And when you look at higher education, do you think accreditation, which is already changing, or the length of getting a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, or how degree granting process operates today, do you see that shifting as a result of this?
That is a really excellent question, and I think it is possible. We're seeing a lot of challenges to accreditation as it is on the political front to some degree, but that is quite possible. In terms, the other one thing I saw recently, I saw a demo of an AI tool that would help prepare for accreditation, for example.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which, if you've ever been on a campus that goes through these accreditation processes, they're years long. Preparation for self-studies and all these kinds of things. A tool that could help assemble and keep these things in place, and would be amazing. But I do think we're at a point right now, more than any time in my career in higher ed, which is a long time now, 35 years plus. Accreditation is being looked at in a different way. So I think there could be some changes coming.
Of course, before students come to a university, they have at least 12 years to get ready. So when we look at K-12, put on your John Dewey hat and just kind of think about, how do you think that's going to change the whole K-12 experience, or how do you think it should change?
Well, I'm gonna have to bring this one to my education faculty who probably been thinking about this. So I'll approach it this way. I think I've been involved in public higher ed for a good part of my life, and in one case, one of my areas I oversaw had charter schools and things like that. There are so many gaps across the country and in certain cities with preparing adequately young children. So my hope, and I might just be, I hope it's not a naive hope, is that tools can be used to try to bridge some of those gaps. Although I think one of the things that's going to be a challenge that currently is, will certain communities, maybe more underserved communities, will they have access to these tools? And I think that is a part of what we ought to be thinking about as well as leaders. How do we make sure that because it will adapt. K through 12, AI will have an effect, like we're talking about with higher ed, but will everyone have the chance to use it and experience it? Will they have access to it in their home? Well, those kind of things. I think that's a viable concern and question for us.
And I see a lot of people being concerned about AI robots taking over teaching, but we've seen anyone who saw teaching in COVID. We know that even MOOCs, we know that younger students really need to be in a community, at least currently. I don't know what the next 50 years looks like. But secondly, how about a lot of the administrative work offload from a teachers. I mean, if teachers could potentially, this is the part people don't see. Teachers have received more and more responsibility, retraining, administrative. It doesn't give them enough time to focus on students as much. So can it allow potentially teachers to focus on creative thinking in building student communities rather than trying to do more and more paperwork? That could be the positive end of it. Some thinkers are going, this could actually be a positive thing if it's managed properly.
Yeah, great point, JP. And here's what I just read for higher ed, and I think it hits the same issue you just talked about, which would affect K through 12. Anyone who's had to grade papers, do all these things, it's not that they're important tasks. They're time-consuming tasks. And a lot of the administrative, this is changing. I'm sure there will be lots of debate and differing opinions on this. But Canvas, I think, has just partnered with an AI group to do things like assist with grading, assist with all these kinds of things. I'm sure some will embrace it quickly. Others will have some ethical questions. And I think we're gonna have to wrestle with that, but that's exactly what we're all facing. I like your point about thinking that if, teacher, I admire so much those who teach K through 12, especially in, here I'm close to New York City. I see what our education students we train go out there, and some of them take on very, very challenging tasks in certain school systems. So to the degree we could help them with better technology to really focus on the people and the students, what a great thing, but not an easy task.
Well, two more questions. The first one is, what keeps coming up? Do we have enough run rate to re-educate the workforce to take on the job that AI requires? Because as opposed to other revolution, whether it was internet, even when you go back to the industrial revolution, we just had a lot more run rate, and it was a lot more gradual. It was disruptive, but it was a lot more gradual. Certainly in the past, people were not living and working as long as they have. So, but this is coming in the next 5-10 years. I mean, we are seeing jobs displacement even today. Do we have enough run rate to be able to, get all of our workforce kind of replacing, whether you're a driver, whether you're client customer service, you're doing retail? Is that a concern to you at all?
Yeah, I think it is. I think that, those of us who use the internet every day, I've already seen a change, right? So when you ask a question in Google, what comes back to you? Yes, you can get websites, but oftentimes you get the answer, right? You get, you're not, it might reference the websites, but it's already changing how we access information, for example, very quickly. So your question again is a relevant one and a good one. I'll speak for my institution, Molloy University, which, we are involved in, as I mentioned, we have this large nursing program, business, arts, and sciences. Each discipline may be affected differently, but I don't think, there are some of them that are going to turn on a dime, but I don't think everything will. So it's an open question. I think what our job is as leaders is to try do best we can to anticipate what are we already seeing that employers, and I am keenly attuned to what our regional employers need. If they're telling us, and we can see as we're talking to them, we need these skill sets, then we need to be able to be adaptable quickly and anticipate it if we can and get ahead of it. One of my major things right now, and it is involved with AI, but it's a whole educational approach that is, we're very much traditional. We have been anyway. We have PhD, bachelor's degree through PhD, but we have a strong workforce development piece with certificates, badges, those kinds of things. Trying to put some innovation there to talk about who you are, which is what's the fast emerging upskilling kind of thing that we can do. So I hope we can stay at least steady with it, as you said, without getting obsolete too quickly. It's frightening out there right now, as you know. I mean, again, small places smaller than a Molloy University are struggling out there. And, it depends on rural areas, things like that. So we're in such a strong position where we are within a highly populated New York area, thank goodness. But we have to adapt too. Otherwise, just like anyone, if we don't adapt quickly, I think we're going to be facing some challenges in the future. So my job is keep us adaptable.
Well, I'm sure if all the bills, onslaught of bills coming at higher education, the fun hasn't stopped. Last question for you is when you go into your board meeting and you have a pretty diverse, board of trustee, what is the discussion around AI? How frequently is it coming up? How much of a concern is it?
Yeah, it has come up, and we've talked about how we're trying to work it into our thought processes from academics to operations. The folks who are on my board, a lot of them from finance, law, are seeing the effects in their areas. They're asking, but I think like everyone, there's still this open question about where's this all going? And there's not a rock solid answer to know. But as you said, and as we've been talking about here, I think our students are already using it to do the kinds of things they've been asked to do in the past, write papers, turn in assignments, things like that. But I think the work itself is going to change. And that's the kind of thing our board members are wondering about. They're listening too, though. They've been a good partner with us on trying to adapt to the future.
Any last notes by you to our listeners?
Well, thanks for the chance to talk about this. I'm learning like everyone else is. I think that we should, as leaders, educational leaders, make sure that we aren't closing doors, but trying to keep them open. And, some things will be right for us and some won't. So it's our just like we do in almost all aspects of leadership, you have to make good decisions about what's good for you and what isn't. We won't say yes to everything, but we have to say yes to those right things. AI is going to have some yeses, and maybe there will be some things that are no's, but that's our hard job is going to be to figure that out.
President Lentini, it's been a pleasure.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the College Admission TV Presidential Podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll bring you another insightful conversation with a distinguished leader in higher education.